Shalom Aleichem Rabbi Sai, and welcome back for those who've been away. I hope that all the mocks went exceptionally well, and we should all have lots of hatzlacha going forwards. The topic that we have been learning is a specific type of muktze called a kli shamalachtai le'issa. Because it's been a couple of weeks, so we'll just do a little recap. A kli shamalachtai le'issa. Now, a kli shamalachtai le'issa means it's a kli. It is a real tool. It has a use. It's a utensil. But it's malachtai le'issa. It's normally used for something which is forbidden. A classic example would be a pen. A pen is muktze, which means you can't move it on Shabbos because it's a kli shamalachtai le'issa. It's a tool that is normally used for something which is forbidden, which is writing. And so to the classic, super classic case is the case of the hammer, which is normally used to build, one of the 39 malachas, but you're using it to crack open your walnut. And we saw that the Mishnah Berurah holds you can only, once you've got this kli shamalachtai le'issa, it's muktze. It's muktze, I can't move it. However, there are two leniencies where I can move it. And the two are l'tzairach gufay and l'tzairach makaymai. L'tzairach gufay means I need this thing to do something permitted. So the classic example is I've got to crack open this walnut. I love walnuts. I would just look, my covered Shabbos, my Einik Shabbos, I could do with this walnut right now. But I look around and someone's moved the nutcracker. I haven't even seen a nutcracker for so many years now because it all comes already cracked, you know. Any of you ever cracked open a walnut in your life? Yeah. Whoa, okay, you guys like previous generation, you know, like, you know, still from the Rishonim. So l'tzorech gufay means I've got no nutcracker, so I can use my muktze hammer to crack open my walnut because it's a kli shamalachtai le'issa. It's true, it's muktze, but it's a kli, it's a vessel. Shamalachtai le'issa, it's normally used for forbidden use, but if I'm using it l'tzorech gufay for permitted use, that's okay. We had a machlokes, is that only okay if you don't have a nutcracker? Yeah, and the mainstream opinion, though there is a minority opinion, mainstream opinion is you can only do that if you don't actually have a nutcracker handy. Okay, so I can move it if it is l'tzairach gufay. Let's say I want to scratch down the back of my back. Right now, imagine you feel like a real itch, and it's just in the middle of your back. Everyone goes like this, you know. It's like, you know, you feel like an itch in the middle of your back. And you just really want to scratch it. But it's one of those places that's just a bit inaccessible and you can't reach it. Can you use a pen in order to scratch your back on Shabbos? Right? So again, if there's nothing else that you could use to scratch your back and it really needs a good itch, so then a good scratch, so then theoretically that would be the case of like using the hammer for a permitted purpose. Normally you can just rub it against like a corner, you know, like a doorpost or something, you know, and that's become, you know, okay. So so one could do that, but that is l'tzorech gufay, and then there's l'tzorech makaymai, which is if it's in the middle of the table and it's exactly where I need to put down a plate or something, and I've left it there from before Shabbos. Since I need that place, l'tzorech makaymai, I'm allowed to take the hammer away and put it elsewhere, And what I've seen I can't do is I'm not allowed just to move the hammer for the sake of the hammer. I can move the hammer l'tzorech gufay if I need it for permitted use, or l'tzorech makaymai if I need the space. But I can't just move it for the sake of the hammer, let's say to protect it. I'm scared it's going to get robbed if I leave it in the garden, or something else which is muktze, that I want to take it out of the sunlight or out of the rain or something like that. I cannot normally move it for its own sake. That was just a little recap of some of the things that we have seen so far. Any questions so far? Excellent. Okay, now. Now here is a really cutting edge example of something which is a kli shamalachtai le'issa, moving l'tzairach gufay. Now, imagine that you've got a time switch which right now the lights in the room are off, yeah? And let's say it's the light in your room is off right now, but when the time switch turns, the light's going to go on. But right now it's off. Okay, so far so good? Right now it's off. Now what happens if I think, oh my goodness, I don't want this light switch to go on. I want to keep it off. Right now, what is it? Off. Right now it's off. But why is it off? It's off because the time switch hasn't kicked in. Yeah? But the switch is actually pressed to on, but the light is off. Yeah? You with me? Anybody with me? Yeah? Now the time switch is going to suddenly become activated, and then the light's going to go on. Am I allowed to flick the switch now when it's off? Am I doing anything electrical by flicking this switch? It's in the on position, though the lights are not on because the time clock is off. At the moment, it's just in the on position. If I flick it to the off position, have I done anything electrical on Shabbos? Have I created a circuit? Have I stopped a circuit? Have I done anything electric by touching it? No. I haven't at all, because anyway, the electric's off. So what would be the only possible issue of moving this switch, which now the light is off, and by flicking the switch, it will enable it to stay off even after the timer goes on. So what is the possible issue? Well, the circuit, right now there's no circuit. Oh, so you could say maybe it's like a gromo for the future, but I'm talking about a case where right now it's off, and all I want to do is stay off. So there's no gromo that I'm like indirectly causing it to go on or anything.
The current's not flowing now, but the circuit will open through.
Okay, but right now, since nothing is flowing, and right now it's off, what I'm trying to do is to keep it off. So actually, if we look at this through our halacha glasses, you see you've got different, you've got some glasses that are like cool shades, you know what I mean? They're like, Ray-Ban, some black shades, and you look, and everything, they just put everything in the shades. You got different glasses. You got halacha dika glasses. If you have your halacha dika glasses on, then everything you see it in terms of halacha. And that is how a Yirei Shamayim goes through life. You wear your halacha glasses, they can be contacts also, but they are halacha dika lenses, halacha dika glasses, and everything you just see, well, what's the halacha regarding this? So, you know how, if you wear your halacha dika lenses, when you look at this light switch, you know what you see over here? You see a kli shemalachta le'isa. Because this switch is normally used for something which is forbidden on Shabbos. What's it normally used for? Activating and deactivating the lights. So right now, there's nothing electrical happening because the time switch is off. But it's still an item that is used to turn on and off light switches. So this is actually a shtickle klisha malachta le'isa. That's what the light switch is. If you're wearing your halacha dika glasses, it's a klisha malachta le'isa. So Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach in box 25, says you are allowed to move this because it is considered a klisha malachta le'isa, and it's l'tzoirach gufay, which is huge. You're learning major heterim over here that you could go through your whole life not knowing had you not come to shir today. So, and we'll take it even further as well. So let's have a look in box 25. We've spoken about half of it, but not the other half. Box 25. B'shah shezerem hachashmal mufsak. At the time when there's no flow, electrical flow coming through, mutar lahoitzi esateka min hasheka. What does that mean? I can take out, even not just flick a switch, I can take out a plug from the socket. If, let's say, there's a plug, and you know that when the time goes, this electrical item is going to be activated. Let's say it's a hot plate to go on Shabbos morning. Now, can you turn on a hot plate Shabbos morning? Is another big discussion in Hilchot Bishul. Some allow a hot plate to be activated to come on a time switch Shabbos morning, but you could only heat up dry things on it. So technically speaking, you could have a hot plate that would become activated to go on at 10 o'clock on Shabbos morning, and then you put an upside down tray on it, and you put a lovely dry potato kugel or potato kegel. The Hasidim often say kegel, the non-Hasidim say kugel. You can tell if a cow is Hasidish because it goes me. If it's a non-Hasidish one, goes mu. So the kegel. So what's a cow's favorite tefillah?
Musa.
Thank you. Yeah, sorry about that, Rabbi Isai. Just, It's just to give chizuk to the other Rebbes. When they tell a joke, it shouldn't be the worst jokes you've heard. So that's why I do a chesed, a service for them. Yeah. So if you've got you've got your potato kugel and you want to heat it up Shabbos morning, so you could have a hot plate that becomes activated 10 o'clock, let's say. Put an upside down tray on, lob on something dry, which would be, let's say, a potato kugel or some schnitzel or something. Yeah. And now you've got the hot plate on Shabbos. Let's say you've set the hot plate to go on, but let's say you thought there were guests coming. In the end, you realise there aren't. You've got 2 hot plates on. You don't need 2 hot plates on, or even you've got 1. And you're not going to need it. Can you actually? It's not activated yet because it's on a time switch. You know, you can have like little time switches on the plug. Yeah. So it's not activated yet. Can I take the plug out before it's become activated? Now, before you came to this shir today, you'd all say, no, for sure, Muktze, what are you talking about? What sort of business are you talking about? Rav Shlomo Zalman Auerbach was very religious, yeah? He was a huge Paisek, the Paisek HaDair. And what he's saying over here is that, let's see it inside, B'shah shazer mechashmal mufsak, at the time when the electric flow is not coming through, mutar lahotzi es hateka min hashek, you're allowed to take the plug out of the socket, or mutar lasos pu'ula doimer b'meseg, or you're allowed to do something similar with a switch to deactivate the switch, to turn off a light switch because the light's not on right now, but it's going to be coming on later. I can do something that will stop it from coming on later. Kedei sha'or lo yudlak, so that the light will not become activated. When the electric flow comes on again. All you're doing is there's something that right now is off, and you are causing that it should stay off. That's all you're doing. The other way around is more complicated. We're not talking about that right now, yeah? But if it's off right now and you're just keeping it off. So he says, why should that be osa? Omnom, kedei lemona mitiltel muktze biyodayim, yesh la soisoi kil achar yad. But he says, even though, according to what we've just said, this is the plug is an item which is muktze, right? Why is the plug muktze? Because you normally use it for something forbidden, something that you couldn't do on Shabbos. Why is the light switch muktze? You normally use it for something which is forbidden on Shabbos. Yeah? You are allowed to move something muktze, klisha melachta le'esa, l'tzairach gufay, yeah, that I want this, it's for the purpose of keeping the lights off. He then says, but actually it's better to do it kala achar yad. What does kala achar yad mean? With a deviation. Do it, it's called the back of your hand, but it means to do it with a deviation, right? Why? He says, why do I even need to do it in an unusual way? Surely I don't need to do it in an unusual way because it's just a normal case of moving this type of muktze, which I'm allowed to do. So why does he say better I should do it with an elbow? If when Shabbos came in, the light was on, we say this idea of migur de iskatzoy. So just to explain this last half, migur de iskatzoy means that there's another type of muktze, which is something that was muktze when Shabbos came in, that sort of stays muktze for the duration of Shabbos. That's called migu since the iskatzoy, it was muktze, but bein hashmoshes, when Shabbos came in, iskatzoy lekol hayoma, it stays muktze. So what he's saying is that if the light was actually on when Shabbos came in, or the hot plate was on when Shabbos came in, then even though this is a klisha malachto le'issa, even though it's a particular type of muktze over here, that I should be able to move for the sake of a permitted reason, because when Shabbos came in, it was actually on. It's like it keeps its muktze state throughout Shabbos, and therefore it's better to do it with a shinoi, better to do it in an unusual way. Was that clear? Yeah, was that clear? Was that okay?
Can you sorry, I went out of you. Can you recap?
Right, so to recap this wild halacha over here, which nobody would believe you had you not seen it inside over here, inside of Shlomo Zalman Auerbach, a wild heta, a wild leniency. What he says is, if the light switch right now, if the lights are out, but the switch is on because there's a Shabbos clock that's going to activate it in an hour's time. And I don't want this light to go on in an hour's time. Yeah, right now it's off. I want it to stay off. Or you've got a hot plate that's plugged in and it's got a little time switch on it like you can get. And it's going to be going on in half an hour's time. And I do not want it to go on in half an hour's time. So what I want to do is for it to stay off. So then technically speaking, what I'm allowed to do is the light switch is a type of Muktze called the Klisha Malachtoi Le'issa, something which is normally used for a forbidden purpose to activate the light. The plug is a Klisha Malachtoi Le'issa. It's a tool that is normally used to do something forbidden, electricity on Shabbos. Yeah? These things, I can move that particular variety of Muktze, a Klisha Malachtoi Le'issa, a tool that's normally used for a forbidden thing, I can move that L'tzorech Gufay for a positive reason on Shabbos. And therefore, technically, the lights are not on right now. Technically, I could turn off the switch so that later on, when the timer goes on, it will not go on. I could take out the plug because right now it's not on. And what I'm doing is I'm moving a Klisha Malachtoi Le'issa, something which is normally used for a forbidden purpose, L'tzorech Gufay, for a positive reason, so that it shouldn't go on. That is the use that I want of it right now. And I would be able to actually take it out. Then he says, if when Shabbos came in, these things were on, just that they'd gone off afterwards, then there's another principle, which is something that was Muktze when Shabbos came in, it stays to be Muktze, even though right now it's deactivated. So then you'd have to take it out with a shinoi, or to turn the switch with a shinoi, using your elbow or something like that.
But that means to make it go on, you're not allowed, yeah?
But to make it go on, not. Yeah, we're talking about keeping something off. Okay?
Yeah.
Okay. So don't apply this, to other things unless you've spoken it through with a proficient rabbi first. But on the actual topics that we were speaking about, what we've said is true. Yes, go.
Surely you're removing the plug from the socket, even though it's not, there's no circuit. Surely it's breaking part of the circuit.
Very nice. Seemingly not. Seemingly, it's only really considered a circuit if it is activating or deactivating something as you do it. Otherwise, it's just like I'm moving a chair out. It didn't do anything before, wasn't doing anything now. Yeah? Okay. Yes?
If you put the plug, you build the plug out, the excuse is the L'tzorech Gufay. Why? What do you use?
I'm using the plug to prevent the lights going on. That is a tool. I'm using it not to break open, not a hammer to break open a nut. I'm using this so that the lights should stay off later. Right, I'm using this the same. The plug and the switch have the same status over here. That both of them that would be okay to do. Yeah, if all I'm doing by flicking the switch or pulling the plug out is that it stays off, then that's permitted. But if it was on when Shabbos came on, yeah, if the light was activated or the hot plate was activated when Shabbos came on, so then you've got the problem, Migodis Katzoi Ben Hashmoshes, it was Muktze when Shabbos came in, then you'd have to do it with a shinoi in an unusual way. Okay? Okay, now we're going to move on to something much easier. This is very advanced. What you're learning here is super advanced. You can ask most yeshiva bochum who've been for 2-3 years in yeshiva, they won't know that. Yeah? So, doing super advanced stuff. Now we're going to do something that is a little bit more straightforward. And that is like this. Give me an example of something Muktze on Shabbos. Huh? Muktze, that's Osa. Osa is something I'm not allowed to do. Muktze is something I can't move. Huh? A phone. Okay. Let's say it's a phone. Now, a phone, we've discussed a little bit beforehand that it has an internal accelerator, which is that it recognizes when you're moving it. Yeah? It recognizes when you're moving it, which leads on to other questions. But let's say a phone which is off. Yeah? Should know, I make a big deal I keep my phone on till mamish I go to shul. I even take my phone in the car with me. Yeah? I take my phone in the car with me to shul. And I leave it in shul. Not because I'm so addicted to my phone, but because I get shilas all the way till just Shabbos comes in. I had shilah a few weeks ago. Someone was stuck in traffic, and Shabbos was about to come in. It was like it was a rabbi in Manchester calling me up to ask me what to do. It was his wife who was stuck in traffic, and he wasn't sure. So I get shilas quite close till Shabbos. Huh? Well, it will depend on how dangerous the area it is. But what happened, generally speaking, is to park the car. You could get a non-Jew to drive you if it was safe to get a non-Jew. You could get a non-Jew to drive you if it was in a dangerous place. What happened in the end? These ladies, they ended up, with some. There was like a house full of Muslim women, and they looked after them, and they were really kind to them, and they stayed there till a non-Jew was able to pick them up. But I don't want to just go off topic so much right now on this point. Maybe at the end we'll leave time for a few questions. But just on this, yeah? So let's talk about, so I have my phone on me till Shabbos, not mamish till Shabbos comes in, but till a couple of minutes beforehand when I get to shul, and then I make a very, very big deal of pressing the off button. Yeah? I'm machabed one of my kids. You can press the off button, and you're pressing the off button. It's mamish a machaya, mamish a simcha for me. Yeah, it's like my mini weekly going to Barbados for Shabbos. That I'm mamish, it's off. Leave me alone. I'm okay now. And I make like a big deal out of it. I'm very, very basimcha when I turn my phone off just before Shabbos comes in. Yeah. So let's say you've got a phone which is off. Yeah, and you left it, let's say, on your bedside table, and you brought a drink with you. You wanted to have a little drink, and you see that it is, and the drink spills, and you quickly pick up your phone without thinking. Yeah? So you've now got some muktze in your hand. Now what? Do you have to let go? Or once it's in your hands, are you allowed to hold on to it? Yeah? What's the halacha? So the Shulchan Aruch in Shin Ches Seif Gimel, you don't have this in your pack because we don't have the Shulchan Aruchs there. We just have the additional bits. Says Shin Ches Seif Gimel. Okay, so listen to this. Any muktze that you're allowed to pick up, l'tzorech gufay or l'tzorech makomos. We said beforehand, let's say you're picking up the hammer to crack open your nut. Or let's say you're picking up your pen from the middle of the table because it's in the middle of the table and I need that spot. And it's a klisha malachtei le'isa, any type of muktze which is a tool. If it's, let's say, a rock in the middle of my table, I wouldn't be able to pick it up because a rock is a different variety of muktze. But if it's a tool, a klisha malachtei le'isa, something which is used normally for a forbidden purpose, like a pen in the middle of my table, yeah, and I want to put a place setting there, so I can actually pick it up. Now that I've picked it up, like, what do I do with it? So the Shulchan Aruch says, once I have picked up some muktze in a permitted way, I'm allowed to now take it wherever I need to, wherever's the place that I normally leave it, and I can take it, anywhere. Now, the Orchos Shabbos says that even if you stop walking for a minute, you're still allowed to continue walking as long as it's in your hand. And this is in box number 26. Let's have a look in box number 26. Got it? Box number 26. So, box 26, Orchos Shabbos, Ayin Prima Godim, Siman Shin Yud Ches, Beish Lavom Sev Kotten Samach, Shemavor Mimenu. That explains. Ti'im Omad Shuv Ein Yochel Lahamshich, V'lochein Tzorch La'ilichu B'li Hefsek Alam Bokem Mehu Reitz Nichei, Omna Mish Dabur La'yiskir Din Zeh. So some say that if I've picked up muktze for a permitted reason, if I stop, I can't continue, but the Mishnah Berurah does not hold like that. And even if you stop, you can continue, as long as you're still holding it in your hand. What about moving it from one hand to another hand? So he brings so that he brings that it seems to be you are allowed to move it. He brings first some who say you can't, but Lamaisi, Paskins, you are allowed to move it from one hand to another hand. And he says at the end, Shedas Eli Rabba, underlined, you're allowed even to give it to another person if you can't move it there yourself. So let me give you an example. And also, this is even if you pick it up accidentally. So whether you've picked it up for a permitted reason or you've picked it up accidentally, now that you've got it in your hand, you can take it to wherever it is that you need to. So you could take it to put it on a shelf, you can move it from one hand to another hand, and even if a person can't reach a high shelf, and they've got this Muktze thing in their hand, so he paskins, they were even allowed to give it over to another person. That you're even allowed to give it over to another person. So this is something which is very, very interesting. Let me give you an example. Let me give you an example. If you've got something, do you like pistachio nuts? Any of you who like pistachios? I'm a big pistachio man. Sometimes I prefer cashews. I go through like my cashew periods, and then sometimes it's like pistachios all the way, So let's say you're eating some pistachio nuts. You've got the pistachio, you've got this outer shell, but MS, this is Muktze.
You have to put a hole inside.
Huh?
You have to put a hole inside.
But I'm saying, but once you've eaten it, and you've got it in your hand now, really, technically speaking, it's Muktze. But what we're learning is once you've got this Muktze in your hands, you can take it, you can walk it over to the dustbin, you can give it you give it over to somebody else to put in the dustbin either. And the basic principle is that once you have moved some Muktze for a permitted way, then you're allowed to continue moving it, either if it was permitted or it was done by accident. Okay, so the two things that we've learned so far, and now we're going to stop for questions. The two things that we've learned so far today is we've learned about light switches and plugs in sockets. If they're off, what you can do to keep them off. And we've also learned that Muktze you've picked up in your hand, once it's already in your hand, again, not something which is osa, not something which is forbidden to do. I can't just say, I'm allowed to do this. But Muktze that I've picked up because there was, some Muktze here on the table and I needed the space, or I was using the hammer to break open my nut, or it was picked up by mistake. Now that it's in my hand, I can take it to wherever I need to go to put it away, move it from hand to hand, or even give it over to somebody else. Okay, we'll take a little, we'll stop over here and just have general questions, could be on anything. I can't promise you that I'll be able to answer them, but I'll try. And if I don't, Blineda, I'll come back with an answer next week. Yeah?
So are you allowed to put it down to get a stool, let's say, to reach onto it?
Very good, very good. Once you've put it down, game over. Then you can't.
Well, I'm just in the way again, then you can't.
Yeah, very good. Very, very good. If it's in the way, because you need that space, yes. Good. But you shouldn't put it down there knowingly doing that. Yes?
Why when you hardware that you put your middle, pinky finger up?
Right. So, V'zoi Satayra Asher So Moshe Lifnei Bnei Yisrael P'Yeshem Biad Moshe, it was put by the hand of Moshe. If I remember correctly, that is a practice that people do that we don't have any source for. If I remember correctly, Bli Neda, I'll look into it, but if I remember correctly, it's something which is, there are a few things that are urban legend minhogim that don't actually exist. I think that's one of them. I think the other also, sometimes where people take 3 steps back and 3 steps forwards, and they do the little bounce like that. You've seen people do that? Take 3 steps forward and then 3 steps back, 3 steps forward. Yeah. I don't think there's any. I don't think that's. The bounces, the little bounces at the end. I mean, it's good for your calves. It's good for your calf muscles. But I don't think there's any. I don't think there's a reason for it. But if a person has kavanah, they're giving honor to the Torah, then or they're acknowledging the Torah, they're thinking of Hashem. Fine. Yes.
Having pistachios, and you take the shell off, and then you put it in a little bowl on the table.
Right.
You don't need the bowl. You don't need where the bowl is. How do you?
Right. I think that will. But as Hashem, I hope we're going to come to that still. Okay, because I just want to check into that because we've got a whole little shtickle on that. So Bez Hashem, we'll come to that properly. Yes.
In the case of Hilchot Nefesh, could you specifically choose things that are less specifically choose something that have a less amount of malachas, or we just the priority just make sure the person's safe and not to.
Okay, very, very good. So what does pikuach nefesh mean? So, life-threatening danger.
Apparently it's like a limb as well.
Generally for a limb, it is discussed. Generally, poskim say that a limb is also life-threatening danger because if they bleed, they could lose their life from it. Yeah. So another example. Other examples of life-threatening danger.
Money can make.
Okay, very good. But that'll be separate halachas regarding that. Separate halachas. Let's talk about pikuach nefesh. You need to call hatzolah. One needs to call an ambulance. This happens the whole time, and especially Be'ez Hashem. One day, you'll all be married to a fine, young, very frum girl, Be'ez Hashem, and Be'ez Hashem, she'll be expecting a baby, and you'll all have lovely big families, Be'ez Hashem, happy, healthy mishpachas, Be'ez Hashem. So there now, and you're always wondering what day is the baby going to come, and 1 out of 7 is going to be on Shabbos. It probably ends up being more than 1 out of 7, just because people get nervous, and I don't know why, but statistically it should be 1 out of 7 that are going to be born on Shabbos. So what can often happen is you need to call an ambulance, or you need to find some way of getting to the hospital. So how does it work with pikuach nefesh when there's life-threatening danger? So what I'm about to tell you is really, really good, useful knowledge. There are 2 types of life-threatening danger. There's imminent, called this side, imminent life-threatening danger, and there's non-imminent life-threatening danger. Imminent life-threatening danger is chas v'sholom, a person just got burnt, or they got a nasty cut or something, and they need to get to hospital now. That's imminent life-threatening danger. Then there's non-imminent life-threatening danger, which is, for example, a wife says to her husband, I think I'm starting to go into labor. The contractions are starting. You need to get to hospital within the next hour, 2 hours. But it's not like she's saying, I'm having a baby. Yeah, it's gradually happening. It can happen different ways, But that is a non-imminent life-threatening danger. There's life-threatening danger. She's about to have a baby, but it doesn't need to be this second. Okay? Now, when it comes to the imminent life-threatening danger, fast as you can, it says the Godel Shababayis, the most prominent person in the house, should do the malacha straight away, no messing around, and they do the malacha as directly as possible, as straight as possible, because there's imminent life-threatening danger. What happens if it's the non-imminent life-threatening danger? So then it's ABC. ABC are as follows. A, if there's a non-Jew, ask the non-Jew to do it. So let's say you happen to have, there's a non-Jewish neighbor or a non-Jewish help who's in the home or something, you'd say to them, excuse me, please. You can ask them directly in this case. Say, please, could you call an ambulance? Please, could you call this number for Hatzolah? Yeah? That is, if there happens to be a non-Jew there, that would be preferable, because it's non-imminent life-threatening danger. If there's no non-Jew around, the country is full of them, but when you need them, they're often not available. So then, level B is do it with a shinoi, is do it in an unusual way with your knuckles or something like that. Do it in an unusual way. And if you can't do that, then there's level C, which is, since at the end of the day it is pikuach nefesh, you would do it directly. Yeah. So just to summarize that, imminent pikuach nefesh. What's the halacha? Direct as fast as possible, straight away, in the most clear and obvious way to break Shabbos to preserve the person's life. Then, if it's non-imminent pikuach nefesh, like someone needs to be in a hospital within a few hours, what's ABC? If possible, a non-Jew. If you can't do that, then use a shinoi. If you can't do that, then you do it directly. Okay, so that's how it works with these sorts of things. Then you always assume it might be pikuach nefesh. Yeah. Okay, next one. Any further questions?
Oh yeah. Go first. Yeah, I'll go first. On Shabbos, if you have like a selection of magnet tiles, you have to put the colours in their own piles.
So if you've got like a huge mixture, you shouldn't be sort of separating them and putting them in their own piles neatly. However, there is a halacha of Shlomo Zalman says, which is if you do have a big mix and you pick one up and you've picked it up You know, once you've got one in your hand, then you can put it, you know, wherever you want, huh?
Something that comes to your hand.
As on purpose, continuously take them.
Yeah, well, you shouldn't be dafka looking for this color. You pick one up and then put it. You could do that, yeah.
What was I going to say? Oh, is it an Avera not calling? Let's say you need to call a Torah. It's obviously an Avera not calling because he's putting his life in danger.
Yeah.
But not about that. Is it an Avera not calling because it's your obligation to call?
There's a posuk that says, Lo yisamoid al dam re'echo, don't stand by the blood of your brother. If you see someone who's dying, you can't just say, not my problem. You have to try and do what you can to help. So therefore, yeah, one should be in contact with them. You know, one should call the police or the Hatzol or whatever it is that you need to in order to look after them.
Just one more thing. Is it, if you break the Shabbat calling someone, is it part of, is it equal as you did not keep Shabbat, or is it equal as yes, you kept Shabbat, it's just you had to do it?
In which case? In a case...
Let's say they asked you, did you keep Shabbat? Do you say, no, I did not keep Shabbat, but...
Well, because you had to call for a...
Is there basically a reason not to keep Shabbat?
What, to look after somebody who is ill, you're saying? You were keeping Shabbos because you were keeping the halachas of Shabbos as they apply to this situation. Yeah. Okay, yeah?
For a doctor, if they would have to work on Shabbos.
Okay, so yeah, I've got to go now. It's a very long one and has lots of details to it. But what a lot of doctors do is they have a rov and they discuss it through, and there's a little booklet that some people put out that I have at home as well. Yeah. A very, very good question. Practically speaking, because we live in a society where if we weren't, if we would just walk past, so then it would, there'd be great avor. So of course, the bottom line halacha is that one does. Yeah.
So there's no one around.
Huh?
There's no one around.
Never know.
Okay.
Someone want to save a life or so.
Have a great day, guys. Hatzlacha. Good to learn with you. Shkayach. Thank you.